Man. So Jim, tell us about this merger. How big is the team y'all are connecting with?
So we went from a team of three at Raymond James here, and then we're merging with another team. So it's going to be a total of nine of us. Um, and the other team is very similar to ours, where it's a mix between private client and 401k plans. They're a little bit more specialized in the 401k side, whereas we were 2/3 retail, 1/3 plans. They're probably vice versa. And they are a little bit more upmarket. So we think it's going to be a good partnership moving forward on, using both our practices to, leverage some new business and, streamline some processes. It's just getting to that point. It's going to take some time.
Totally. Well, guys, let's go ahead and kick it off. If Rico is able to join, he can just jump in. I know, Jim, you mentioned you listened to the recording. I think, Sam, you told me you listened to the last meeting. I know Bill and I and Rico got the chance to kind of introduce ourselves. And so y'all probably caught up a little bit from that. I was thinking on this call, we could have the guys that haven't had a chance to talk kind of intro themselves. And the way I'm thinking about it is give us some background on your firm, your story, how you got into the business, kind of where you're at now, what your clients look like. But then I'm also curious to know from everyone, one thing that you feel like you figured out recently, maybe not recently, but something that you feel like you do really well, where you've got the solution, you've stress tested stuff, and it just works for you or for your clients. And then give us something that you haven't figured out yet that is keeping you up at night. And maybe after each of us go, we'll just kind of open the field and get some feedback, and hopefully some answers get traded around, or at very least, we can all sympathize with each other and say, yeah, I also deal with that. So Sam, Brennan, Jim,
Yeah.
Does anyone want to just hop in and start talking?
Yeah, I can go.
Perfect.
So my name's Sam. I've been in the industry for just under 4 years. Kind of fell into it by knowing one of our head partners. I went to school with one of his sons, and we're primarily an insurance-based agencies. We've got about 150 people on the benefits, employee benefits, personal lines, commercial insurance. That's a big feeder for us. And then it's just myself and one other advisor on the 401k side. So the initial guy, he's about 40, started it about a decade ago. And now we're at closing in on 100 plans and just crossed over 300 million. So we're getting excited for that. And we see a lot of potential, obviously, with upwards growth, kind of just bouncing ideas off of the other two sides. Our primary market, I would say, is from, if you divide up average plan by assets, it's about 1 to 5. That's kind of what we see as kind of like our specialty, because that's a very underserviced niche of the market. We have plans over 20 and 30, but we don't really go up past that. But that's kind of our niche that we kind of just have made for ourselves. We're up in West Michigan. So we kind of just primarily work with companies in the Michigan area, but we've got some, obviously, with the virtual age to kind of just prospect outside of it if we have a certain relationship and an opportunity there. One thing that we've been doing really well lately is what we call like a portfolio allocation chart. And what we do with that is we map out all of the employees or all of the participants in the plan's asset allocation chart, whether they're building their own portfolio or in a target date fund, and it allows our clients to kind of make a more educated decision. It stemmed from one of our clients having so it was one of our bigger plans. It's about 35 million, and they had like $7 million in stable value. So we were trying to make the decision if we want to do like a QDIA refresh. So we were trying to give them as much data as possible based on how their participants, if they're actually building their own portfolios correctly. So what we do is kind of just do the asset allocation or the equity exposure on the y-axis and then age on the x-axis, and we kind of just map it out on a scatter plot of are they actually building their portfolios correctly. And that's one thing that's been helpful for us. I mean, we just did it with another plan. That's the opposite side where it's like a $20 million plan and they had $8 million in their large cap growth fund. So I basically prospected that plan saying, I guarantee you guys have participants that are solely invested in this one fund. And then come to think of it afterwards, we were able to disclose where there's 6 people that have about $1 million each that are all solely in that one fund. So it's saying that this is a little bit different than what your advisors are looking at, rather than just talking about fund analytics and fees and stuff like that, but kind of doing a more consultative, proactive approach to kind of helping out those people. And then on the flip side, one thing that we're struggling with, and what you guys kind of talked about with startup plans initially, that was kind of the key to the first call for what I remember. And for a while, we were just doing a one-time fee, but with the tax credits and everything like that, we've started tacking on more of an annual fee for the first 3 years and then moving to a percentage based when the tax credits are out. So that's just a thing that's not necessarily keeping me up at night, but I'm wondering how it's actually going to be facilitated, because we've never billed clients for fees. So I don't really want to turn into a bill collector, but that's kind of what you have to do to a certain extent with startup plans, in my opinion, to kind of scale it to make it worth our time. So that's kind of where, I mean, I don't think there's a perfect answer for it, but I know that's something that we've all kind of been talking about. Startup plans are a necessary evil to a certain extent with our market and everything, primarily being in the smaller ones. So just trying to find a way to scale it and make it worth our time.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sam. One thought I have on the billing side is, I don't know, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but record keepers will allow you to bill flat fees through the record keeper. So maybe talk to your preferred provider for those startups and see if they'll let it do it seamlessly, and it just takes a step out of the equation. You don't have to go knock on people's doors.
It comes from the provider. So we use Transamerica a lot for our startup, so it just come from them basically.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't have any Transamerica plans, but just talk to them and see if they allow flat fee billing.
Mm-hmm. Sweet, thanks.
And yeah, one more piggyback. Bill Chetney, I know y'all haven't met Bill on a call yet, but Bill basically is a 401k guru. He works with a ton of advisors. He has like this weird commune of advisor network. I don't know. How would you explain it, Bill?
Yeah, so we've been working with 401k specialists since 2001. So we've just been around a lot of large successful practices that are independents rather than kind of your wirehouse where everything's set up. So I've been around those types of folks forever. And we have a group of advisors that get together. We run conferences throughout the year. And so we do best practice sharing. And we get a bunch of technology that comes around, industry manufacturers, your record keepers and money managers. And we explore all sorts of topics from practice management to, I think, student debt is another thing that's exciting besides the tax credit right now, like you were talking about, Sam, from Secure 2.0. So that's something that I think I could be helpful for with this group is, I love hearing all of these like pain points and like opportunity sets. Like I agree with you, Sam, the small market is going to be the next growth factor for the next 5 years, because there's a lot of money out there to be captured. But then also too, if it's helpful, I could reach out to some advisors who specialize in small or large plans or, whatever, and bring them to this group to kind of help you guys network as well. But we're just a large networking entity that tries to provide a bunch of value where an independent wouldn't have it if they were at Merrill Lynch, right?
Yeah.
Unless they were at Merrill Lynch. So hopefully that makes sense. But
For sure.
yeah, met Luke at the last Napa, and I work with a lot of usually 55-year-olds, 60-year-olds. So I'm like delighted to be in this group with a bunch of younger folks. And then I actually know a couple of younger folks who are like fathers and sons and succession plans for older advisors retiring. So that's another group of folks that I could reach out to if it would be helpful for this group. But hopefully that's clear as mud, but it's really good to meet you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sam, I wanted to segue to Bill because I was dealing with the very similar questions as you on the startup plans, and talked to Bill about it. And kind of offline of these calls, he made some calls to people, reached back out to me with feedback. And this last week, I actually sold my first flat fee plan based on that advice. And so
Yeah.
I definitely think, at least for the startup plans, leverage Bill as an individual resource. Hit him up, get a call with him. He's got some really cool software tools as well that can be helpful as you explore that.
For sure. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd love to connect, Sam, and see how you're handling 100 plans and growing.
Yeah.
Because I think you're dead on. But someone, I don't know if you guys know the Wise Rhino group. They're like one of the M&A folks, but he had a really good analogy where it's kind of like a NASA launch, and you're sending a rocket up to the moon, and if you're sucking up all these plans, if you're like 2 degrees off, right, as you like grow exponentially, you're going to be way off from where you wanted to be by the end of it. So it's like, I feel like everyone's thinking about their service models right now. So I'd love to connect and just hear what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's the biggest thing with the benefactor of having a couple different sides and being able to cross sell with a couple different insurance arms is super helpful. But then those always come with the 1 or 2 opportunities are paired with about 10 startup opportunities. So it's how do we scale it, and how do we not say no, we're not willing to help out them unless they have assets, basically. Because I mean, obviously we are, our money's worth our time, but we don't want to say no, and we don't want to obviously shy away the opportunity from the other people to kind of refer us in, because they're like, we're not going to refer them in unless they're at this asset count.
You don't want to like have a benefits broker be like, well, why would I keep referring if you're going to shut down?
Exactly.
Like, that makes a ton of sense.
Cool.
Yeah, you don't
Thank you,
want to
Sam.
bite the hand that's feeding you.
Yeah, for sure.
I
No,
had that a
we'll
little bit with,
only take the $10 million plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll only take the high, low participant count, high balance plan.
Yeah.
Please.
So I was already kind of saying earlier, Jim Fitzgibbon, I'm out of the Chicago branch for Raymond James. I've been with Raymond James for about 5 years. I met the senior advisor through my CFP classes. He was a teacher in the retirement plan aspect of it. We kind of connected there, and now I pretty much run the day-to-day for the retirement plan clients, and he comes in for big meetings or some education, but pretty much the day-to-day is on me. About 30 plans, and usually they're between startups to 25 million, with majority falling in the $5 to $10 million dollar range. A couple outliers both ways. Some stuff we're doing well, I would say, is we have good partnerships with some payroll reps that's feeding in some plans, and we've gotten a couple really good plans from it. The downside of it is sometimes you get the plan with 100 participants and a couple $100,000 in assets, and it's how do you service it, how do you charge on it. So it's partnering up with good record keepers that could handle it and offload a lot of that. And then where we're struggling at, similar to you, Sam, is the startup plans, trying to find a provider. So we originally started with American Funds Record Keeper Direct and Diatech, and then it just turned into me just doing the day-to-day service, and it just became a time suck. So we were exploring Vestwell, and when I was listening to your guys' call, it was nice to hear a couple guys speak highly of Vestwell. just from there being more advisor centric. One thing for the startups that we consider is if the startup doesn't want to do a match or they don't want to pick up some of the costs, they're probably not going to be good clients. So we're considering not taking them on as clients. That's something that we literally talked about, I think, a couple days ago, because we have a startup that's kind of turning into just a little bit of a time suck. And then from a billing standpoint, we do usually with those, we'll do a hybrid model where we'll charge a flat fee plus a percentage fee. So, we're getting compensated for our time leading up, and then we're going to have a percentage fee built onto that. So we're able to take advantage for when the plan grows. And then usually we say, once the plan hits $1 million, we will reassess where the fees are going to be, and have that conversation. And that's also when we'll take the plan out the bid. So it's kind of a two-step thing for when the plan, kind of we incubate it, grow it, try to get rollover assets in, or try to get more buy-in from trustees or highly comps. Once it hits $1 million is when we'll take it out the bid, see what else is out there, and talk about how we're going to do the fees.
Jim, do you mind sharing kind of a standard startup plan as far as what your actual flat versus percentage fee would be? And then service model too, like what are you giving them in those first few years?
So the flat fee is usually anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. And then for the percentage asset-based fee is between, we started at 23 basis points, but now we just do between 25 and 50 basis points. And then for service model, we go with the cheapest is fiduciary only, where we're just helping with picking out the fund lineup, picking providers, making sure the plan's operating, according to RISA, DOL, all that fun stuff, providing investment policy statement. And then we'll do fiduciary plus call center, where they're able to, we'll put on employee education, we'll put on an enrollment meeting. They could call our 800 number to speak with one of us on, we're not doing one-on-one plans, but, at least to help them out. And then the third, which is going to be the most expensive, is we will do full financial plans for any participant that comes our way. And we have someone in-house that does that on our team. So we just offshoot them to them. And then either at that point is they take the plan and become a retail client. And then, that's when they, cross the threshold from being just a plan participant to being a retail client. And that's out of my purview. That goes on to a couple different advisors on the team. So that's kind of how it works. And it's, obviously the cheapest model, fiduciary only, is the 3,000, usually between 25 and 50 basis points. It depends on, we don't want to set like a perfect box, just because some of these startups, if it's a startup tech company that have some highly comps or will have good flows, we'll price it more competitively versus, we just priced the startup for a food manufacturer that we're not going to get that many good flows, but it was a referral from a payroll client, or payroll rep. So, we're going to price it for our time, but knowing that it's probably not going to be, the star of the ball.
So when it gets to $1 million, I like putting that trail in the beginning, right? Because, you can, if you do $3,000 and the plan explodes and the workload, to go back and renegotiate, and increase your price rather than saying, hey, this trail doesn't make as much sense. So when you get to that $1 million, and I'm sure it depends on flows as well, what does your fee structure change to? Do you keep the trail? Do you just run it to a cap, or do you just change to a flat fee?
Usually we'll go to some sort of asset-based fee completely. And then depending on plan demographics, we will either bill directly or it will come out of plan assets. A lot of times, usually we're billing directly because it's trustees or business owners that account for a large percentage. So it just makes more sense. And then when you do the employee education, you could sell that as a benefit.
Got it.
Perfect. Well, I guess I'll go next. Finally get the camera figured out. So, no, I'm Brennan McCain. I'm with Hall Financial Advisors. We are an independent firm of Raymond James. We have offices in Ohio and West Virginia, but I mainly work out of the Marietta, Ohio office. So, me personally, I actually just got in. I've been actually fully licensed for less than a year. For the past 6 years, I was actually a college basketball coach. So, but I had two buddies that I had played college basketball with that work here at the firm, and they had this opportunity in the 401k space, and they had always done maybe some one-off plans here and there, but really only had about 10 to 12 plans, and just really underserviced, and had an opportunity come up with a couple franchisee associations. And basically, said, yep, we can do it, and needed to hire somebody to do it. So they somehow landed on a basketball coach to do that. And so now that's, basically what I've been doing. In the past, I was hired in May of last year, about 2.5, 3 months, got all my license, and basically just thrown into the fire right away. We're up to, in the year and a half, we've brought on 30 plans, only at about 60 million right now in assets, but a lot of startups, a lot of franchisees. So, sometimes a lot of them are, 500 participants, and they're starting up a plan. So I, feel like I've seen a lot already, but obviously still trying to figure it all out. I think one thing we have done well is we've had good centers of influence that have been referring us. The franchisee associations have really helped. So they're sponsoring a Me app for, and so that's been a way to drive a lot of plans our way. And then one thing we haven't figured out, but we're just starting to dabble in this, is on the personal side, we've built a pretty good reputation. We about 1.5 billion on the personal side, and that has been strictly a referral business. We don't really do any advertising or marketing or prospecting. But we've, for the local plans that around us, we actually have hired an outside, marketing person to help us kind of, market our 401ks and try to really drive some growth there. So we're still trying to figure all that out, and the process for that. But as far as our current plans, I think we've done a really good job of, it's mainly me. I do bring in one other advisor when, I just feel like I need some backup for, prospect meeting, whatever it may be, but it's mainly me. So I think we've done a good job, but we're still trying to figure out, how we service all these plans and things like that. We have went 338 with a lot of them. That's really helped us scale, especially the startups. We do use Transamerica a lot. I would say our biggest pain point is the TPAs. If you find one that's really cheap and does the full 316, they tend to be a little bit slower, and quite frankly, they just suck. But if you have one that, the 316 is too expensive, then they essentially do all of that work, but they're outside of the 316, but they're not fully operating as the full 316 on it. So just trying to find the right TPA for the price has been, something that we've been looking at. But honestly, a lot of the plans that we've done have been franchisees, and it's been a 338 streamline, Transamerica and Tag Resources. But we're always trying to find the next, the best provider to work with, and we'll figure it out eventually. But it's been really good. I've been super busy. I've learned a ton in the past year, and we're looking forward to really trying to grow this thing the next 3 to 5.
So Trans doesn't go bundled?
So they actually bought this TPA firm, Tag Resources, and I've had good and bad experiences with them. Yeah, Jim's nodding his head. I figured, yeah. I've had days where I'm completely done with tag. I don't want to work with them ever again. And then I've had days where, I'm like, oh, okay, they're starting to figure things out. They've been pretty good. So try, we'll see.
Yeah. I put an interesting article in chat, like Transamerica, Empower, Voya, all these big box guys, Fidelity, obviously. They're all kind of sluggish right now because of all the M&A activity. And then TPAs are all like 100 years old, and like they're not really hiring anybody successfully. But I think for the startup space, it would be good to look at this new breed of record keepers. And this article calls them digital record keepers. But, technology overlay for onboarding, and in some cases collections, and then a lower price. So like your guidelines are and human interests, like human interests wants to gouge you on like 316 and 338, right? And I think they're more of a direct play. And then you have like a guideline, which is like a cookie cutter. But there's a list on that article I sent, and some that do better. Vestwell does a better job. Like PCS is another that I don't think is on that list. But there are some record keepers that are more aligned to doing startups at scale,
Right.
than others. So it might be good to sniff around on some of those.
Right. And so we have dealt with a fair amount of startups, and honestly, our sweet spot is that 1 to 10 million range. The three Transamerica and Tag Resources approved 338 on Ray J's platform, and we haven't been beat on price. So like price is not the issue. It's at times it's the service part. But at the same time, they're so darn cheap that like it's really kind of hard to steer the plan sponsor away from them, because it's providing that fiduciary protection at a low cost. So we've thought about, once the assets get built up big enough, go through another conversion. But some people haven't had a great experience onboarding the plan, so they don't want to go through a conversion right now, which is, I totally understand. And I guess my probably biggest pain point with that solution so far is, at sometimes I feel like I'm a TPA servicing advisor. Like I feel like I'm doing a lot of TPA work, and that I shouldn't have to do. But at the same time, at times it's not bad, right? Like it's not all awful. At times it's been really good, and I just probably the consistency with that. We have local TPAs that we've used. There's a firm out of Charleston, West Virginia, that's phenomenal. Like that, they make my life extremely easy. I don't ever hear anything, with the plans that they're currently the TPA on, which means they're probably running pretty smoothly. So they're just, their 316 pricing is just outrageous. So, we don't want to, we're just trying to find the right balance right now.
I'm curious for the group with MEPs and PEPs, and there's that startup credit for PEPs. I think it's secure. But I remember when we did RFPs, the 316 on PEPs would just blow everything up. And it really doesn't make sense unless you have over 100 people and you can have that audit cost, right, taken away. Do any of you look at MEPs and PEPs? So, I guess I'll just start. So we're obviously, these franchisee associations, we're sponsoring they're sponsoring a MEAP. And we have talked to, record keepers about the ability to convert that into a PEP, and just haven't heard a whole lot of, hey, we're ready to do that. But there's kind of the feedback we've got from record keepers is, hey, this is in motion and it's a possibility. We have the ability to have this platform, function as a PEP if, we need to. But we haven't really pushed a whole lot for the PEP yet, but I do think it's something that we've talked about with
with Ray J and, some of the sponsors of, the MEAPs.
We've looked at the PEP a couple times, looked at different providers. We just haven't really focused on it yet. But I know it could be useful, especially for those plans that are the audit costs. You're sharing it amongst different groups. You could also find a provider that will white label for you. The plan, the record keeper, so everything comes up. Your firm's name. We don't know if we want to go down that route yet, unless we have a little bit more support. Because a couple of the record keepers that say they could do it, I haven't used them on a regular plan yet. So I'd rather test the waters before I, cannonball in.
Yeah.
But to tag on to Brennan, your concern about TPAs, we have one trans tag plan, and I feel with you 100%. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not.
I feel like I've learned the
have
TPA side very well. It's like, well, I could probably do a lot of, there was one time that I had to go through the entire census data and clean it up because tag wouldn't. And it was like, all right, I've had enough. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be doing this. It took me 5 hours. I was like, supposed to be the advisor on the plan.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think our group just does well now that we're merging too is we have TPAs that are, specialists, and they're great for high level, high touch service so when we're doing, a cash balance plan that we tack on to do some cross testing, or we're doing a defined benefit plan. We like bringing them in. Obviously they cost more because they're specialists. But that's how we sell it. You're going to get high service for that. And then, when we're looking at down market, usually we try to either go to a bundled provider with payroll integration. And that seems to help with these, smaller plans. Because I agree, finding the TPAs that do the startups well, it's tough.
Yeah. And the thing for us is like some of these, we did have a lot of startups, but a lot of these franchisees, if they're doing the auto enroll or or offering a good match, like there's so many employees that like these plans tend to grow pretty quick. So we, and we have some that are lagging that just haven't kind of taken off yet, but a fair amount of the plans that we've got that are startups, are over, the past year, 250 in assets. And it's like, okay, wow, these like are pretty good. Like, but it's been a hit and miss. The franchisee model is more scale play, just grab the assets, right? And go 338, 316 on those, do the Transamerica tag solution because it's so cheap. And I'm really familiar with that onboarding process now. We kind of the role that we play is, I'm on every single call and email throughout the entire process. And that's probably where I get involved a little bit of doing some TPA work because I've just done the process so long. It's like, all right, well, I'm not waiting on tag to respond for this. Let's just, hey, this is what we need to do. And then I kind of help from there. So part of that might be my own doing. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't even been licensed for a full year yet. So I'm still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
You're already cleaning up the census, doing the TPA's job. Shit, man, that's
yeah, and not bad for coaching basketball 3 months before that. And it's like, all right, I guess we're gonna figure out something different. So but I've really enjoyed it. Honestly, there's a lot of similarities between the two fields. They're completely different. But there actually is more similarities than people would think. It's a lot like recruiting, honestly, and I really like that part. I like building relationships and just we've kind of found, especially in our area locally, it's a pretty conservative area, and if you at least are present for and providing some sort of value and responding in a timely manner, I think the plan sponsors appreciate that.
Thanks for sharing, Brennan, man. That's awesome. I can't imagine the fire hose you've been drinking from, dude. Like, that's
It's
crazy.
just a whole new language too, trying to learn the lingo. But it's been really good. I'm really lucky. We have a good firm. They basically, we have 9 fully licensed advisors now, staff about 25 people. And, essentially they had this opportunity and said, hey, here you go, you're going to run it. This is your baby, make it your thing. But I'm obviously can go to them for, anything, really. And, they're willing to help me out. But, so I'm lucky that I have a really good team behind me that had really good connections and kind of, had it on a tee for me when I started.
Totally. One thing I want to interject here with, Jim mentioned Vestwell earlier, something you're considering. On our last call, Rico really pumped them and said that he's had a good experience with them. So I reached out to Rico and got contacts for like my Atlanta rep and got introduced. I'm happy to do that for any of y'all if you want to talk to them. I've had a few plans with Human Interest, which is kind of one of these new generation digital record keepers, and I'm probably not going to put any more plans with them. To Bill's point, they want to come in as the 338 and 316, and they really want to push the advisor out as much as possible, which
Yeah.
I don't like. I want to have a little bit more hands-on with the lineup, and they don't have great advisor resources. It usually takes a minimum of a day to hear back from my rep. So anyways, all that to say, I don't have any plans with Vestwell, but I'm going to give them a shot, and I'm happy to connect y'all with my person if you want to get kind of your region rep.
I've spoken with our region rep a couple of times, just on
Cool.
Human Interest. I met with the rep that covers Chicagoland area, and she said almost verbatim, yeah, Guideline got into it to, replace the advisor, but now they're hiring people like me to come out and build partnerships with advisors. So it's like you're talking on both sides of your mouth. And I was like, all right.
Let me be controversial. Empower's doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing. They're advertising it now, like wealth and retirement advisors in-house. So I feel like just because of the way the markets are, like, people are going to find a way to fill that gap. And I think Vestwell is doing that. But yeah, I agree with Human Interest, and Guideline is, I think, swapping back like, hey, no, we'll work with you. But I think the optimism, which, I hear is what's one thing a record keeper can't do that the hundreds of thousands of advisors around the country can do. And that's have hundreds of thousands of advisors around the country. Like a record keeper could never hire the amount of distribution that represents like Raymond James alone. So I think, I don't think the advisor role is going to go away in this relationship sold world at all. But it is frustrating to see these record keepers try to go direct or try to cross-sell and monetize as much as possible, away from all of you. I think it's a mistake, but it's an interesting theme that's happening.
Yeah, actually, kind of add on that, we just had a plan that we actually just got. It's actually our largest a plan currently. It's like about 12.5 million. And they're, we went and pitched them the importance of getting, trying to reduce some of their fiduciary exposure. They hadn't bid out the plan in forever. And, we were like, hey, well, let's add an advisor on it, and really help, educate your employees, things of that nature. Well, they had went back to Fidelity to get an advisor on it. And, they're like, oh yeah, great. Yeah, we'll just add some more, more expenses to the plan essentially. And well, then we're like, well, okay, well, did you rebid the plan? Because you haven't sent this thing out for bid in 10 years. And
Wow.
it was about half of that. We got a couple of bids and it was about half of what they're currently paying. And we're like, okay, well, this is why you need an advisor on the plan, because you just sent it out for bid and they came back and added more costs. We did it internally and got you about half the price adding an advisor. So I don't know if that has, that's kind of our pitch that we're like, okay, that kind of worked. If people are trying to do that, and part of that is that 338 solution through Raymond James that we're using, which helps.
It's amazing how many plans there are out there where an advisor's just forgotten about it and they're collecting like 75 grand every year, and I've never seen him. Or like you'll see a lineup and there's like A shares in there and you're like, what? Like just think that you can come in and just absolutely take the plan over like in spades. I don't know. I think it'll eventually go away, but it's amazing how those stories keep coming up. Like I love hearing that. I think it's good news because it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Guys, we're coming up on an hour. I don't think we need to hold it much longer than this. Go ahead, Bill.
I put another thing. So guys, a big the initiative for me is helping the next generation as much as possible. My generation, right? Like I said, I've worked with a lot of mature practices, but I put one of our value adds in chat. We call it the toolbox. So we go out to a lot of our partners, record keepers, money managers, and we collect their top 10 value adds and we categorize it. So feel free to look at that. I put the password below. But hopefully these resources are helpful. And if you have anything where you go, hey, Bill, this would actually be helpful for me, that really helps me direct our energies. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
And yeah, I feel like I'm really hyping Bill up here, which I am, but they do a conference every year. They're doing one in February 1st through the 3rd out in Arizona. I'm going to try and be there just because Bill does want to get young advisors together. So
yeah, come on,
Bill, if
guys.
you want to just send out the flyer maybe to our email chain and just put that out there. I think it'd be cool to reconnect with y'all. Our next roundtable is August 15th. I put it on as a monthly thing. I figured we just run it through the end of the year, just kind of see where we're at. Don't feel like you have to come to these every single time. Even if it's just 2 of us that show up and chat for 20 minutes, I still feel like that's a huge value. So just hop on whenever you can make it. I'm thinking next month we discuss 2 topics. Maybe we get only through 1, but the first is just process for quoting startup plans. So with Secure Act, there's just a lot of math that goes into that, figuring out what's the bottom line. And that's the typical theme that I feel from owner operators. They just want to know how much are they actually gonna have to spend to get this thing up and running. So would love to hear from y'all on kind of your step-by-step process on, from introducing yourself all the way to getting the plan set up. And then the second is just on education. I'm sure that we have a lot of overlaps with how we run education meetings and how we offer resources to participants, but I'd be really curious just to hear from everybody on how they do that and what a typical cadence looks like for a client. So I'll send that out in an email. That way, if you're in the call, you can reference it and be thinking on it. But thank you guys for showing up. This has been awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Nice meeting
Hey,
you all.
folks.
Adios.
Bye.